Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Scoops AFL Trade / Free Agency Wrap Day 6. Now, I am having to record this a little bit earlier than planned. There's still about 2 hours to go officially in today's proceedings, but looking at all the reports as of right now, besides stuff that has already been talked about, I don't see any more official moves being made today in terms of players, potentially pick swaps, but that's as of right now. So, we actually got things to talk about today, which is great. And we're going to get through all that. Harry Sharp, more Dan Houston chat, massive pick swaps complicating Liam Baker, Tom Barrass, Dan Houston, and more. We have a trade request. We got more Clayton Oliver news. We've got everything right here on the channel. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Smash the like button. Turn on the bell for all notifications. The trade period will still be on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. I want to stress enough, ladies and gentlemen, that no trades can officially be done on the weekend. Talks can happen. They can agree to things, but nothing can be official. Okay, where are we going to start? Now, we're going to go in order because everything is very important. Now, before I go through the opinionated stuff / media reports, I'm going to go through what has officially happened this evening. We have the first trade pick swap of the season. Brisbane have traded with Carlton. So let's go through that, shall we? Not with Carlton, sorry, with Richmond. Brisbane have traded pick 20 to Richmond for picks 32, 42, 43, and 45. Now, people will go, wow, why would you give so many picks for a 12 pick upgrade, essentially? Well, Brisbane need 20 out as the pick will get chewed up for Sam Marshall and Levi Ashcroft. Those other picks in the 30s and 40s will add up the points value to when a bid comes where they predict for Ashcroft and Marshall. They'll essentially be using those picks for Levi Ashcroft and Sam Marshall, which is why they're doing it. And Richmond, well, they get a big upgrade. They get to 20. And they get another, end of first, start of second round pick for picks in the mid to late second and third rounds, or start of the third round. So that's all they've done it. Now, people say, who cares? Well, I've just told you why. It's an upgrade for Richmond, and Brisbane get enough points for Sam Marshall and Levi Ashcroft, or more points. Now, this pick swap is another one of similar value. Brisbane and Carlton. So Brisbane get pick 34 and 66, and Carlton get pick 73 and a future second rounder. Now, you're probably going, well, why would they do that? Brisbane get more points for Levi Ashcroft and Sam Marshall, and Carlton, yes, 73 is nothing, but they get a future second, which will be better than 34 overall. So both clubs win there, and Brisbane get more points for Levi Ashcroft and Sam Marshall. Now, this pick swap is going to change this entire trade period. In fact, it has changed this trade period because there's huge complications on Dan Houston, Tom Barrass, and potentially Liam Baker as well. So it involves Carlton and Hawthorn. Carlton have received from Hawthorn pick 14. Hawthorn get a future first and second rounder from Carlton. So how does this complicate Dan Houston, Tom Barrass, and Liam Baker? So first of all, Dan Houston involved in this. And by the way, overall, I feel like Hawthorn win on this to a degree, but not if it's going to stop them from getting Tom Barrass, which it could potentially do. So depends how Barrass, Houston, and Baker go, how it finds out who wins this trade. Now, Hawthorn have got an extra pick. In reality, Hawthorn's future first that they've gotten from Carlton will probably be better than 14. Not guaranteed, but it could. That's if they don't on trade this pick. So that'll all depend on that. But so how this affects everyone involved. Dan Houston, Carlton will now have picks 12 and 14. Now, will they use that for Dan Houston? Possibly. That would be enough, and it would get it done, and they would get their man in Dan Houston. But they've been steadfast that they do not want to trade pick 12 under any circumstances, which then leaves them with 14 and nothing else because they've lost their future first and second rounder. unless there's a player like a Matt Kennedy that comes out and they get a second rounder in some capacity, I don't see how that would be enough. And even then, that may not be enough to satisfy Port Adelaide with Dan Houston as he's contracted. And that's probably around the market, probably not good enough. Collingwood have like 13 and 23, but that's not going to be enough either. But they're potentially going to have some more picks in that could satisfy Port Adelaide more than them. Then there's North Melbourne, who have offered bench potentially pick 3 or whatever they're pick 2, which is way overs. But it doesn't look like Dan Houston wants to go to North. He hasn't officially requested to trade anywhere, but he's keeping all options open in the event that he has to go back to Port, or maybe in the end, it might end up being North or stay at Port. If he really wants to get to Victoria, he'll have to cop North Melbourne. Can the Saints come back into this race? They got 7 and 8. Could they look at giving Port Adelaide pick 8 for Dan Houston and like a future second and get it done? That'd be an ultimate heist of the century after they've been ruled out for about a month now. Now, Tom Barrass implications here. Hawthorn would have traded pick 14 for Tom Barrass and a future second, but West Coast just were taking their time, according to reports which I'll get to shortly. So what are Hawthorn going to give West Coast for Tom Barrass, who's contracted as well? It was going to be 14 and future second. West Coast didn't answer them, and Carlton didn't want to wait. Hawthorn didn't want to wait. So what do they give West Coast for Tom Barrass? They've only got future picks now. Future first and a future second. Or 2 future firsts and a future second. So is that going to be enough? Do West Coast want future picks? It may have been partially a part of the deal, but do they want every pick coming their way in the future? Would they want it now in this strong draft? West Coast took too long, according to John Ralph, which we'll get to that quote shortly. Now, how does that affect Liam Baker? Apparently now Freo, according to a few reports, now that Freo are a genuine contender for Liam Baker. West Coast is his preference, but West Coast have been stuffing about because that pick that they would have got from Hawthorn for Barrass would have been then on traded to Richmond, which was 14, which now Carlton have. So Liam Baker, Freo got picks like 10, 13 and 18. That could get them both Baker and potentially Bolton. So Freo are a genuine contender now for Liam Baker, which West Coast fans will not be happy. So that's that. So that's all the implications. Let's go to the John Ralph tweet while I'm at it. He essentially was saying that, they were stuffing about West Coast, which they were. So let's get it up, shall we? So John Ralph said this, and I quote, on Twitter earlier today. Sorry, Tom Morris, not John Ralph. Hawthorn had offered West Coast pick 14 and a future second, a future third going back to Hawthorn. Richmond was okay with pick 14 as the centrepiece for Baker, but the Hawks were sick and tired of waiting, so pulled the trigger with Carlton. So, there you go. That's the complications it's now potentially having on the Eagles for taking too long. So, this is very interesting. Does Tom Barrass stay now? Does Tom Barrass, as another club, come in? Could St Kilda, again, try and steal Tom Barrass from Hawthorn's nose and go to West Coast? Okay, pick 8 for Tom Barrass and a future second. Let's get it done. But does Tom Barrass want to leave West Coast to not join Hawthorn? That's another thing. Could St Kilda persuade Tom Barrass to join us and get the same length of deal that Hawthorn were offering him for us? Wouldn't rule out St Kilda trying. Not saying it will happen. It probably won't. But who's to say St Kilda don't try and get Tom Barrass or Dan Houston now, or other clubs that come in and say, look at these issues these clubs are having with those guys. So what can we do? So yeah, it's a real watch this space with Dan Houston and Tom Barrass right now, and Liam Baker. This has shaped the trade period that Carlton pick 14 acquisition that Hawthorn now don't have, that they let go for 2 future picks, a first and second rounder, on top of their own that they already have. Now, Luke Parker with Sydney is no guarantee to join the Roos. Brady Rawlings has basically said they're prepared to walk away if Sydney wants something unrealistic. Will Luke Parker want to go back to Sydney? He'll have no choice, it looks like. So there's a real watch space on this one as well. Now, Justin Lepich, the Collingwood list manager, was on earlier today on Trade Radio and said this about Dan Houston. Probably in a holding pattern. We are hoping to get it done, but it won't be easy. We'll pick it up early next week. The difficult part is everyone is getting everyone happy in the deal. Dan Houston hasn't nominated a club, so it's not like he's definitely coming to us. It is a little complicated, so there's a little bit to work through. Pick 13 is the center point because of how valuable it is, which is currently with Gold Coast that they will trade. That is probably the part of the deal I am comfortable talking about. I feel for Port a little as they have missed out on a couple of free agents, so they are looking for value. We cannot let it cost us our future, which is referring to their future picks, etc. So, going to what Craig Cameron said with pick 13, which is tied into all this, Gold Coast won't put a timeline for when they'll decide who they give pick 13 to. A few new clubs have came to the party with offers today, says Craig Cameron. So that won't include Collingwood and everyone like that that's been linked. Maybe St Kilda's came to the party and Essendon as well. We'll have to wait and see there. They will trade it as a Leo Lombard bid will come before pick 13, so that pick would get chewed up, which is why they are doing it. Now, St Kilda and Essendon have both met with Swans small forward Jacob Constanti, who's been told to wait to the end of the trade period, who potentially could be delisted from the Swans. Apparently, St Kilda are a chance, but not as much of a chance as Essendon, apparently, according to Cal Toomey earlier today. But we'll have to wait and see. They've both met with him, so we'll have to wait and see there, potentially as a delisted free agent. Now, Clayton Oliver again. Okay. He's apparently cleaned out his locker and doesn't want to come back. That is according to Matthew Lloyd and Sam McClure. So, how many times do I have to tell you all this? I want to make this abundantly clear. Clayton Oliver wants to leave the Melbourne Football Club. It is clearly and blatantly obvious, and I'm not the only one to say this. Will they let him go is the real question. No one should be debating whether he, Oliver, wants to leave or not. He clearly does. The only question you should be asking is, will Melbourne let him go? Which I don't think they will. Does he want to go? Yes. Will Melbourne let him go? Probably not. So that is the real $1 million question. Will they let him go? Not if he wants to go, he wants to go. And now this story is ramping up more and more. So I feel like Clayton Oliver does want to leave. In fact, we all know he wants to leave. It's will they let him leave is the $1 million question. So yeah, everything else, Jack Lukosius, John Noble, all those trades will start picking up on Monday. And Dan Rioli, Jack McRae, and Ivan Soldo are being held up due to these other deals. Thank you all for watching this video. We'll be back on Monday with a trade wrap video. If there's a big bombshell on the weekend, I may do a video. Depends if there is something and if it's of worth to make a single video about. Thank you all for watching this. And the trade period is going to start heating up even more. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, we'll probably see at least 15 to 20 player trades alone. And then you'll have some pick swaps, obviously, in those trades and potentially outside of that. It's going to be a big last 3 days of the trade period. Thank you for watching. And Harry Sharp from the Brisbane Lions, who's contracted for another year, has requested a trade to the Melbourne Football Club. Brisbane spoke about Tim Membry earlier today. They said they're probably not going to pursue him. Don't rule that out. And don't rule out Sam Day to potentially join Brisbane Lions as well. Thank you, and go Saints.